Here we go, M12 stubby Milwaukee. Go ahead.
On low power.
Looks like we did a pretty good job with this super clean product here. Man, it looks almost like brand new. Maybe we should even paint this engine bay.
I'm looking at it now and I'm like, it looks really nice. Well, we're back here on our next episode of my RSX build, and boy, do we have a big episode here. But you remember on the last episode, the guys took the whole motor, they completely refreshed it, they resealed it, all the O-rings, the timing guide, everything's completely done. So now when I'm back on the road, I know I'm not gonna have any issues. But here's where I start to get involved on the engine bay, and my dear friend TJ and Michael will be doing a lot of work to get this thing completely tore out. Now, when you're doing a proper color change, I think the most amount of work will be in the engine bay to take everything out so we can get the color behind the smallest of spots. You can see there's some very tight areas that you see just little peaks of white, and you're gonna find out in this episode exactly what color we're gonna be painting my RSX, because it will be a complete color change in this engine bay, and the guys are gonna show you how hard they're gonna work to get everything completely emptied. I'm gonna paint it, they're gonna put everything right back in.
All right, so as you saw Brian, he said that it's time to get the strip in this engine bay. So here we go. It's gonna be loads of fun. I can't wait. But to start, what we're gonna have to do is we got a special kind of jack stand type of deal that's gonna clamp onto the side of the body so we can take the subframe out, the wheels, the suspension, and kind of clear all that out of the way so we can start getting the rack out and all the lines, and then when we're ready to move the car, we don't have to really put the suspension back together. We can just push it around with the dolly and you know, get that to the paint booth so he can paint this thing on the quickness so we can get it back together and put it back in. So first thing, what we're gonna do is lift the car up. We'll get the wheels off, the side skirts off, and then we can put our nice specialty tool here, and so we can dolly the car around after we're done stripping everything.
Here we go, M12 stubby Milwaukee. Go ahead.
On low power.
That's only on mode 2, right?
Yeah. Ready?
So we got a subframe out of the way. Next up, we're gonna go ahead and work on our front end. First, we'll start off with the front bumper, then the headlight, then follow with the AC system up in the front, then work our way to the ABS modulator, and hopefully we get to the back of the firewall here. Oh, look at this. Look at this, TJ.
We can walk in.
There we go. Next up, we're gonna be working on our heater hoses here. Then we'll work on our power steering system, which is right underneath there. Turn it. Power steering pipes here, along with the reservoir. Now next up, we'll be working on the braking system. Before we take out the line for the ABS modulator and the propulsion valve, we're gonna go ahead and suck all the fluid out of the reservoir. And also from the front caliper. So next up, we're going to work on our brake lines. We're going to go ahead and separate in two different sections. Go ahead and remove the two lines that feed off to the brake master. And then we're going to remove the other section along with the brake propulsion valve right down here. Alright, so go ahead and pull off the brake booster here. TJ went ahead and off camera disconnect everything on the inside. Pull off the clutch master there, along with the reservoir, the pipes, and the line, and also the slave cylinder all in one. Alright, here we go. The harness is gonna go out. Come back out to the front. We'll have TJ feeding me the harness now. There we go. Alright. So we got a front impact sensor here. We got a ground horn, outside temperature sensor here. And then I think all we have is just the ABS wheel sensor. And then I think the harness is ready to come out. Yep, that's it. The entire engine bay harness here.
The ground for the battery here.
Yeah, we're almost there. We got a negative battery terminal, a few brackets, two side engine mounts, or transmission mounts, we call that. Then got some of these clips that we got to remove to hold the power steering hose. And we got a couple of pipes here that we got to figure out. One of them is a fuel pipe. I think this is evap here. And yeah, we're right there. All right, so next up gonna be all of the brackets. There we go. That is one strong gun, man. Yeah, I think pretty good here. Pretty much all done. What we do is we're gonna go ahead and lower down this fuel pipe and also the shift cable here.
Take this as a suspension out.
And we'll take out the entire suspension with the spindle, or the knuckle, I should say. And we're gonna tuck this back in. And I think we're good to go. Yeah. So next up, we're gonna go ahead and remove our suspension along with the knuckle, brake rotors and all that good stuff. Go ahead and just remove that. We'll pull this down now. Right, here we go. Boom. Yep. All right, so getting ready to set up our frame tool. So we got our jag holding the car up.
We gotta go up a little bit more.
Go up a little more.
Yeah.
All right. And now we're gonna check this up a little more. I gotta go to you a little bit.
Yep. You push, just push, yeah. There you go. Boom.
What about the other side?
Let me check.
Oh, I'm off. Let me put it back up.
Yep, we're good.
That's it. Got pretty much everything empty out. We got the subframe tool, the frame tool, I should say, on the chassis. Come take a closer look here. Only thing we have to do now is to lower down our fuel hoses and also our harness, which we're gonna do right after here. And I think we're ready to go and ready to pass the torch to Brian. Whew. All right, guys, so we got the car in the body shop now, getting ready to get this cleaned up before I hand this off officially to Brian and also JC at the body shop here. So we got a perfect product to get this degreased and cleaned up. We got 2 cans, well, I should say a spray bottle and a can of super clean. These 2 bottles gonna be enough for us to get everything else cleaned up. Let's go and get started so we can hand the torch back to Brian. looks like we did a pretty good job with this super clean product here. Man, it looks almost like brand new. Maybe we should even paint this engine bay.
I'm looking at it now and I'm like, it looks really nice, it looks really bright, but I'm still not liking the color or loving it. And I'm happy that we were able to remove that much dirt in areas we can't see, so when we go to paint, we're gonna have a nice adhesion. So,
well, I tell you what, I'm all done here. I'm gonna pass the torch to you guys now. I'm gonna go back to the shop.
oh, come on back and sand this, Mike. Now, once Mike got everything nice and pressure clean, then it was time to prep up the rest of the engine bay. Now, Juan is taking just a simple lacquer thinner here, and we started to sand down the engine bay. Then we realized that the sanding really wasn't necessary in some areas, that this paint will just come right off with some lacquer thinner. You see, some of the paint in the engine bay has like some clear coat on it, and some of it is just base coat. So what we went ahead and did is we removed all the weak paint just by rubbing it off with some lacquer thinner. And any of the areas that were a little bit tougher, well, we left those areas for sanding later on. This will help make sure that we get the best possible adhesion by putting our paint over a better substrate. And the substrate here would be the factory primer, which is what you're seeing here in the gray. So with everything wiped off and all the crucial little tiny areas, it was gonna be time to really attack the areas that might have a little bit of rust. For this, it was quite simple. We used our grinder to get off most of the surface rust, and any of the areas where it was metal on metal just had a lot of surface rust. Now we were able to change the actual sanding disc to a little bit more aggressive one to remove any of the surface rust that was within some of the little pits of the metal, and this way it never rusts again down the road. Now we made sure to treat all the areas after we sanded it down with an etching primer, which we'll see here in just a moment. But making sure to take the time to treat all the metal is so important before any sort of primer. Now what we did on the paint that had a little bit of clear coat on it is we simply just took a maroon scuff pad, which is equivalent to about a 400, and we gave it a nice scuff. This is one of the most crucial parts of the preparation process, because if you don't have anything scuffed up, what can happen later on is that paint can peel. Now shout out to TJ and Mike for removing every single thing possible on this engine bay so we can get the most complete and proper paint refinish. Now we will be painting over some bolt holes and some areas that will need to be cleaned up and tapped later. This is just a part of painting engine bays, so make sure you get everything nice and scuffed up. And for areas that you just can't get any of the rust off, we use this handheld sandblaster, which made really quick work of some stubborn rust that we couldn't get out of some really tight areas. Now keep in mind, this works great, but it is a very, very messy job, and make sure you protect yourself if you plan on doing something like this, because there will be sand everywhere. Now once this is all complete, then we used a self-etching primer to make sure that none of the actual bare metal would rust in between the time that we were working. Then we got the car all rolled into the paint booth, and we were able to start another cleaning of the engine bay. You see, you can never be too clean with anything you're doing in the engine compartment, because over the years it's been subject to a lot of grease, dirt, and oil. So make sure you get in every single possible position to get all of that grime up so that your paint can properly stick. And as everything was cleaned up, we started with our sealer coat. Now our sealer is like a thinned out primer, and this will be sprayed everywhere before our base. It's going to allow our base to have a nice substrate, and it's going to allow our base to cover in just a couple coats. It's also going to go over any areas that might have been sanded to the bare primer or just scuffed up white, and it bridges it all together and it gives it one uniform coat, which really helps out when it comes to laying down such a translucent color, which you're about to see here in just a moment. So following up all these little tight areas with our spray gun is so very important, and it's a big part of the process before we reveal our vivid blue here touching our engine bay. Now I really feel like this was a great choice for the RSX. It was between the vivid blue and the burnt orange, as you all know. But in some certain shades, the burnt orange just looked a little bit too brown for me. And I really love the way that the vivid blue looked. I'm always after the OEM look, and I want to make this thing look like it came from the factory in the vivid blue paint coat. So we'll be doing our best to cover every single part of the white that was on this vehicle, from the interior to the exterior to in between every single jam in vivid blue. Once it's all base coated, then we're going to follow it up with clear coat. Now we took it a step further and we're clear coating the whole engine bay for that OEM Plus look. This is something that does not come from the factory. It comes in a satin finish, or just like a base coat finish, as you saw earlier, just wipes off. So might as well have everything in a nice 2 coats of clear coat so it's protected, and when you pop the hood at the car show, it's really gonna look nice and fancy. Now it's so hard to get into all these little tight areas, so if you plan on doing anything like this, make sure you spray that first coat not too wet, because you don't want to run it. Painting engine bays are really tough, and you get a lot of overspray, so safety is number one. So making sure that you're using a full face mask is very beneficial, so you can not only protect yourself, but you can see what you are doing without any of the overspray going directly into your eyes. And again, in many different positions to get as much blue as possible on all of the undercarriage really shows you how beautiful this looks. We're gonna go ahead and get this all finished up and roll it back into the shop so Mike and TJ can start to get it assembled, and I'll let you know what I think about this engine bay once we get it back into the shop. Guys, look at this finish. When I was spraying it, I was like, wow, I'm so happy I'm changing the color of the car. But you know, my job is done here. We got the paint work all done, and we're gonna turn it over to the guys, and we're gonna be putting in all the parts. Now the guys, before they put in any of the parts, they're gonna go ahead and clean them up. And we know how much TJ likes to clean up because he cleaned up these 2 flood cars that I had. So he's gonna be responsible for all the cleanup on this car and get everything back in. I know he's gonna do a great job.
Okay, so like Brian said, this is absolutely beautiful, vivid blue pearl. I think it's a great choice. Now, aside from that, we got all of this to put back in the car, and TJ's behind the camera right now, and he's gonna help us to put all this back together.
Now we got this thing all painted up. We're gonna go ahead and start reassembling kind of in reverse order. So I guess we'll go ahead and start with our wiper cowl and our cruise control module, and then start building the firewall up with our brake lines and our fuel lines and stuff, and hopefully we can get this thing back together. Bring it down. I guess we can do one. One should be strong enough.
And next up, we'll be replacing our expansion valve while we get everything apart. Next up, we got our clutch system here. We're gonna go ahead and replace our clutch master cylinder. That's the old one there, still looking fluid. And we got a brand new one sitting right here. TJ's holding it. And once we get everything back in the car, then we're gonna have to replace our slave cylinder right over here. Our knuckle. TJ is struggling here.
You ready?
I'm waiting for you. You do have the bigger job. Lifting the heavy thing up.
Yeah.
I'll make love to you.
Turn it.
I think that might be it.
There we go.
Alright, here we go.
Oh man, you got it right, T.
And here we have the front impact sensor for the airbag system. And power steering system's up next.
Now that we got the harness in, we're gonna move on to our brake lines, our brake booster and master cylinder. And then, so after we get the brake booster in, we'll be able to put the brake lines on with the VSA modulator. And then we can move on to putting the power steering rack back in. And then our final piece will be our AC lines. And that'll be that for the engine bay.
And talk about the brake booster, we got it completely refinished. Brian did a pretty good job on finishing the brake booster. Now he only refinished the side that actually facing out. The inner portion are still the original finish. And along with that, we do have a brand new brake master cylinder. Don't want to run into any issues once we put everything back together here. Going to tap all the lines for the ABS modulator. Yep. Now we got one last one here. Let's go from the right front wheel to the ABS modulator. Spin it. Right. Okay, one last one here. And we're good to go. Now we'll move on to our brake apportionment valve right down here. So we got the ABS, we got the brake lines out of the way and everything's situated. We got our brackets for our power steering gearbox in. And next up, we'll go ahead and slide this bad boy back in the car. Good there? Yep. So here we have a brand new receiver dryer, and over here we got our power steering high pressure line there. We have our high and low AC pipe all routed in the back of the firewall, and yeah, we make a lot of progress here. We almost done here. We're gonna go ahead and mount up our receiver dryer right over here, and I think yeah, about 90%.
We got everything back together in the engine bay. All the brackets, all the lines, the harness, everything's back together. So last piece of the puzzle is we're going to get our brace off the bottom of the car and put this thing back on the lift, and that should be good to go.
If you want to bring it down.
There you go.
Yep. Okay.
Then we on.
Yep.
Give it up. And now we got our car up in the air. There will be a last piece on the firewall, which is this aluminum shield right over here. All right, here we go. We are all finished up with the firewall and the engine bay. Man, tell you what, TJ, that was a lot of work.
More than I would have expected.
All right, let's do a quick tour. Yeah, man, everything's back together. Pretty much everything except the subframe. So with the his shield out of the way, we are all done with the engine bay, and we're gonna end today's videos. Now, some of you guys gonna ask, hey, the subframe's not back on the car yet, because on the next video, we will put our engine back together, and we don't wanna take it back and forth. And take a look at the subframe here. We got it completely refinished, with the exception of the lower control arms. Look much, much better than before. And on the next video, we'll be putting our engine back together. Remember, the engine we showed you a couple of videos ago is completely refinished. Every gasket, every O-ring, and every water hoses have been replaced, and we can't wait to put it back in the car. Be sure to tune in next week for another fresh video. Give us a thumbs up, drop a comment below, and let us know how we are doing. Thanks so much for watching. See you guys again next week.